It is game day. The Baltimore Ravens take on the Las Vegas Raiders in week 2. We talk about everything you need to know, keys to victory, final predictions, matchups to watch, and so much more coming up next on this game day edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I am your host, here with you, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this game day, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen, each and every day are free and available for you, all podcasting platforms. So in video form on YouTube, you can hit that like button, the subscribe button. In audio form, you can follow along and subscribe over there as well for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Today's game day episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn Jobs helps find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Officially the start of our new series here on Locked On Ravens, having an episode every Sunday at 6 a.m. for game days. And this is exciting, right? Getting you up, getting you ready for the game. So hopefully everybody's excited. Of course, the Ravens home opener is today against the Las Vegas Raiders. So we'll be leading you up to game time here on Locked On Ravens. And obviously after the game, we will have an instant reaction live edition post-game show. So be sure you, again, tune in for all of our game day episodes as well as our post-game. So we have a lot to talk about today in terms of the game at hand. The Ravens looking to get their first win of 2024 against the Las Vegas Raiders. So we'll be talking about how the Ravens offense matches up with the Raiders defense. The Ravens defense going up against that Raiders offense, players to watch, keys to victory. We have so much to get into over the course of this episode. And also really excited about, we have a couple of, show upgrades coming in the next couple of weeks to kind of have this feel even more like a show. So I'm excited for all that. Not going to give any hints away, but if everything falls into place, I'm not exactly sure when it's all going to start up, but that aspect of the show, or at least aspects of it, will be really exciting. But so we'll talk about Ravens and Raiders. Let's just get into the Ravens offense versus the Raiders defense. Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense, I thought they found a little something late in that game against the Chiefs. Really, they struggled for the majority of it outside of that first drive, but I did think that we saw some promise. Obviously, not every drive is going to be a 2-minute drill, but again, that week 1 game script kind of felt like what we had gotten used to during the early season in Baltimore last season, which was that Todd Monken offense starting fast and then just kind of falling off and not doing much the rest of the game, or they'd start slow and then pick it up late. Obviously, the week 1 game was more of the first option there, where they had that first drive touchdown, 7-0, set the tone. Then they got stagnant. And so for the Ravens, I just want to see them start fast and continue that trend. They don't have to score a touchdown on every drive. I'm not asking for that. But for this Ravens offense, just set a tone early. Go up 10-0. Go up 14-3. Like, just start fast and keep your foot on the gas pedal. That, to me, is a really big aspect of this game today, especially because, look, this Raiders defense, they have ballers on it, right? We know that. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins. They have Javon Merrick, and all these guys that can make impacts on the game, and either are high pedigree, former high draft, like whatever you want to say about it. The Raiders do have those players, but there's obviously one area where the Ravens should attack, and I think it is imperative for them to talk about start fast. It's the run game. If you've been an everydayer here on Locked On Ravens, or you've tuned in for game week, you know that I have been just banging on the drum for the Ravens to run this football early, often, and effectively today. We saw what they could do when they did it. And that was honestly with the run blocking not even being so great. The first drive, it was all right. But, the rest of the game, Derrick Henry struggled. They got out of game flow, and the game flow dictated the game. And it wasn't that. This Las Vegas team, you look at their defensive stats, and defensive stats after week 1 is kind of just like, okay, who'd you play? Did you have a good or bad game? You can't really establish any trends based off of this. But we can look at what they did in week 1. 6.5 yards per carry, second worst run defense in the league in terms of net yards per attempt by yards. And then you also have their pass defense where I mean, they're middle of the pack. They're 12th, giving up 5.2 yards per attempt. So if the Ravens can start up with that run game and Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Lamar obviously getting some carries as well. I mean, I'll lay it out again. I've laid it out all week, but you can talk about Raiders will have to start cheating up into the box, start stacking that box a little more. And as defenders, they're gonna have to choose between a guy like Derrick Henry, a guy like Lamar Jackson, whether they want to run option plays or play action. And if you run the ball effectively on play action looks, those linebackers are automatically going to start creeping up towards the line when that handoff motion starts, or whenever there's a inkling that there could be a handoff. If they're getting gashed on the ground, linebackers are like, "Oh, we need to jump on this," and then Lamar pulls that ball back. And all of a sudden, you have Isaiah Likely running, you have Mark Andrews running, Zay, and everybody, right? That, to me, is how you can get out to a fast start and honestly keep your momentum over the course of the game. Because, yes, Christian Wilkins can be a game wrecker. Adam Butler was really good for them in week 1. It's just a disruptor. We know Max Crosby is a dude. But this offensive line has to have a good game here. We know that we saw inconsistency in week 1. Wasn't great from a couple different guys in spots. Chris Jones is Chris Jones, right? The Ravens want to see him again to the playoffs. But that doesn't mean all of a sudden they have a cakewalk from here on out. They have those guys I just mentioned today in week 2. They have Micah Parsons coming up. They have Greg Rousseau. They have Trey Hendricks. This is not Chris Jones is gone, we're good. Nope. They got a long season ahead of them. I do expect the offensive line to play better. Ronnie Stanley looked really good in week 1. So I would expect and hope that continues, especially with his health. Linderbaum looked good, but it's about consistency from those other 3 spots, something we talked about all offseason. I don't expect this line to be a top 10 group this season. We can be realistic. It'd be a pretty big miracle if that happened. And please let it happen, but I'm not going to expect it. But I do think it's going to get better over the course of the year with more continuity and guys being able to play next to each other and get a feel for each other, which is one of the reasons I am against that right tackle rotation. But yeah, you got to start off on the ground, get it going, work play action, and that can get you in a good spot. And plus, it can force the Raiders into certain things. It can force them into certain defensive looks. It can force them to use certain personnels. And if they have heavy personnel out there, I'm taking Isaiah Likely on a slower linebacker. I'm taking Mark Andrews working against the safety, right? All that has to happen. And plus, by the way, I do expect Mark Andrews to have a much better game. As we know, the Chiefs game planned Mark Andrews out of that game in week 1. They made a very clear and conscious effort to do so, which I think is smart. But not every team's going to have the luxury of doing what Kansas City did. And not every team's going to want to do what Kansas City did. So if you leave Mark Andrews in one-on-one opportunities, look, I know Isaiah Likely is the shiny new guy that everybody's talking about right now, but I have not given up on Mark Andrews. I'm not there. They're going to have to make a decision. My prediction is, but that's a conversation for over a year from now, right? We're not having that conversation. The conversation we're having is how do you utilize these 2 guys effectively? I think against the Raiders team that, look, if you can exploit that early and get the matchups you want, get Likely, get Andrews going, it will open up the field for everybody. I also would hope and expect the Ravens take some vertical shots early in this game. Make the Raiders think about it. Because Lamar right now ranks 6th in passing yards, if I'm not mistaken, after week 1. This obviously was before Thursday night happened, but I believe 6th in passing yards for Lamar. But he was down in the middle of the pack in terms of, yards per target, air yards, all that stuff. I expect the Ravens to do that, and I think they should. They need to. They need to get that deep passing game going. That is the final form of their offense. By the end of the season, this running game is going to be fine. The offensive line will be fine enough. I hope it's fine enough. But the deep passing game is something that the Ravens really have not had over these past couple of years consistently. Lamar was a fine deep ball passer his first handful of years in the league. The last 2 years, he's been towards the bottom of the league in deep ball accuracy. And that's not all on Lamar. That's why I'm saying deep passing game. It's not all on Lamar. Receivers obviously play a part, drops, miscommunication, whatever it is. But the team, the offense, Lamar, the pass catchers, Todd Monken, they have to get that going. The Ravens are running too much east and west in some aspects for me. I want to get them north and south, and utilize some of that deep passing game to keep defenses on their toes, I think it's a good opportunity for them to do so in week 1 because the Raiders in that secondary, look, it's not the best secondary I've ever seen. It's not. Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, I mentioned Merrick and all these guys. I feel like this is the week, right? Get it going, get momentum with it, and build on it in future weeks. That's what I'm looking for in this game. Coming up, though, we'll be flipping the field, talking Raiders offense versus Ravens defense. Stay tuned, a lot to get to on this game day edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. So for me, I've had a ton of great experiences over on LinkedIn, finding jobs, networking, connecting. LinkedIn has it all. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and I love going on FanDuel, seeing all they have to offer. We have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of FanDuel Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So for the Ravens and Raiders matchup here, the Ravens opened up as 9.5-point favorites. That number then moved to 8.5-point favorites. So if you like the line on the Ravens and Raiders game, head over to FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. We're back for our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this game day edition. The Ravens and Raiders facing off in week 2. Appreciate everybody starting off your game day with Locked On Ravens and making us your first listen of the day. If you have a friend or a family member who's a big Ravens fan, want some daily Ravens coverage, again, we have our regularly scheduled programming Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We're introducing this Sunday game day edition episode to get you ready for game day up to kickoff. So appreciate you spending some time with me here. Hopefully everybody's pumped up, man. This is a great home opener for the Ravens. So again, friend or family member, be sure to send them our way over here on Locked On Ravens. Just some final notes on the Ravens offense. First, the Raiders defense, because I didn't necessarily read the Ravens offensive stats off here. The Ravens, I mean, they're all right offensively. I mean, again, it's only one game, so it's literally just like, did they have a good or bad game or not? Middle of the pack in terms of passing offense. They're 13th with 6.4 yards per attempt. Rushing, they actually are third. A lot of that obviously due to Lamar Jackson, but 5.8 yards per attempt overall for the Ravens, so that does rank third in the league. So again, you think good rush offense, bad rush defense. Go ahead and exploit that. That's what I would do for the Ravens. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball for Baltimore. Gardner Minshew at the helm for the Raiders in this one. First key for me is to make the Raiders one-dimensional. I mean, that's it every week for me. I've been preaching that for years here on this show. Take away an aspect of an offense. Run game, pass game. It's something Roquan Smith talked about for that Chiefs game and ended up getting roasted for it because of the guy on the other side, and that is Patrick Mahomes. But it's a sound strategy because it allows you to not worry as much about multiple different aspects as a defense. If you take away the run game, the pass rushers are able to kind of put their pass rushing legs on and just go, completely in that mode instead of having to worry about a couple of other things in there. So I think, to me, look, if you can take away Zamir White, who struggled in that opener against Los Angeles, and Alexander Mattison is kind of your pass catching back, your third down back for them, take them out of the game. Take them out of the game. But you want to know who else you should take out of the game? Devontae Adams. We talked about that week 1 strategy Kansas City had, which was eliminate the Ravens' best pass-catching weapon and make somebody else beat you. Well, I would employ that strategy against the Raiders. Outside of Devontae Adams, the Raiders have Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer. It's those guys where look, if the Ravens lose a game where Jacoby Myers has 10 receptions for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, yeah, it's pretty bad, but, that's kind of like a whoa type deal. If you let Devontae Adams go off, he can go off. He can beat you. So take him away. Take him out of the game. Cloud him. Double team him. Send coverage over top. Put coverage underneath. Make Gardner Minshew go elsewhere. Take away that essentially safety blanket and make him trust somebody that maybe he doesn't want to trust. So whether that's Marlon on him, you want to shade a guy over top, you want to do whatever, don't let Devontae Adams beat you. Make him go with the run. The Ravens' run defense, I am very confident that they can stop this Raiders' run offense. I mean, you look at what Baltimore's run defense is. Again, only one game. I do want to preface that. But they're 7th in the league in rush defense after one game. For the most part, they're able to shut down Pacheco in that Chiefs run offense. Wasn't perfect, but again, 3.6 yards per carry for that Ravens run defense. That's where I would focus. If you want to take away an aspect, play to your strength, take away that run game. Take away the run game. Because for Las Vegas, their rushing offense, they're second to last in the league in rushing offense right now. Because again, Zamir White had a bad game, and Alexander Madison didn't do much. He had obviously the pass catch. He had the cool hurdle and everything. But rushing the ball, the Raiders only 3.2 yards per carry in that week 1 game against Los Angeles. And I think Baltimore's defense is better than Los Angeles' defense. So to me, I hope that that's what the Ravens kind of go with here is stop the run, make the Raiders abandon it. And obviously that goes hand in hand with your offense, which is go out there and again, go out to a 10-0 lead, 14-3 lead. And that should help you immensely in this game. So that's kind of where I'm going with it because look, with what this Ravens team can do on the defensive side of the ball, we know that they struggled in week 1 against Kansas City. We know they're second to worst pass defense right now in the league is certainly a glaring hole. But again, we have to remember that's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all those guys, Rashee Rice. And first game for Zach Gore, I expect a better all-around performance. Zach Gore talked about it at his press conference. The biggest thing he learned, just keep it simple. Just keep it simple. That's what Zach Gore ended up talking about, what he ended up saying. I think it's a valuable lesson because sometimes you can get caught up. You can try to be too fancy. You can try to do too much, and it can end up biting you instead of helping you. So with Zach Gore, I do expect some better personnel decisions. I do expect Trenton Simpson to play more as opposed to Malik Harrison at the will. I expect Harrison to play on the outside, especially if Kyle Van Noy won't go. And we don't know at the time of this recording, obviously. If you're watching this after inactives are out, well, obviously you know. I don't. I'm kind of clueless right now. But if Van Noy plays, probably less time for Malik Harrison. If Van Noy doesn't play, they're going to use Harrison on the outside. And I think they will anyway. But if Van Noy, can't play, well, then Rafael has to step up. And David Ajabo has to step up. We saw some flashes from Ajabo, from Travis Jones, some of their pass rushers in that week 1 game. Make Gardner Minshew uncomfortable. Make him roll out. Go get Kyle Hamilton, go out there and get 3 sacks again. Because remember, the last time the Ravens faced off against Gardner Minshew was week 3 last year, Indianapolis Colts. And what happened? Kyle Hamilton had 3 sacks in the first half of that game. Baltimore looked like they were going to win it. But then, obviously, a couple key mistakes down the stretch, and they lose a very winnable game against a very winnable opponent. You can't have that happen here. The Ravens start 0-2. Season's not over, but I will say my saying again, September losses don't matter in September. They matter in December. Puts you in a pretty tough hole. It's 2 AFC losses. And look, I don't know what happened. Even if they win by like 1 point, and I talked about this on the show this week or this past week, if the Ravens win by like 1 point or it's a very ugly win, we talked all week last week about how, that Chiefs loss, I feel fine. Was a good loss. Felt, a lot of positives to take away. The Ravens win against this Raiders team by like 2 points, and they have to struggle for it. That's it's not a bad win because no win is a bad win, but it doesn't feel great. Still won, but you're 1-0. But if there are underlying issues, there are underlying issues. So this is a game that I feel like the Ravens should make a statement in. I feel like they should, especially defensively, where if you can take away the Raiders' run game, make Gardner Minshew uncomfortable, make him move around in that pocket, make him see ghosts, and get to that Raiders offensive line and make him look bad, that's a winning formula on the defensive side of the ball. Coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about some more keys to victory, final predictions, and more. Stay tuned. Plenty to talk about on this game day edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. So one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. My picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes over this Raiders and Ravens game. You want to pick the Zay Flowers more on his receiving yards. You're even Isaiah Likely. Obviously, you had the big game. You can pick more on his receiving yards as well. You might be in a good spot over on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. We return. Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still chatting with you on this game day edition of the show. Exciting time in Baltimore. The city's buzzing right now. Football is back in Baltimore for the first time since that devastating AFC Championship loss. So appreciate you tuning into Locked On Ravens, getting you ready for game day here. And again, reminder, we'll be live post-game as well. So not only do we do these shows, these game day episodes every Sunday when there's a 1 o'clock or 4:25, even Sunday night, obviously, leading me up to the game. But we also do post-game episodes. Been doing post-game episodes for a year now. And this is the first ever game day episode. So this is a new series. I'm enjoying it. And again, just getting everybody ready, getting everybody hyped up for game day. I'm excited. I'm excited to keep doing these things. But again, if you're an everydayer on the show, really appreciate you tuning in every single day and for your support. If you're new to the show, new to the channel, welcome in. Hopefully you stay a while. If you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and follow along in audio form or video form, however you decide and choose to listen or watch to your podcasts or the show. Now, let's talk about some more keys to victory in this game. Obviously, I've mentioned a couple. Starting fast, use your run game, eliminate the Raiders' run game, eliminate Devontae Adams from the game. Don't let him get involved and do his thing. But I think this has to be a really big game. Like, the thing I want to see Rashad Bateman do his thing. With Zay Flowers getting a lot of attention, with Andrews and Likely, I think, the Raiders might sell out a little bit to stop Isaiah Likely this game after what they saw against Kansas City. I think Rashad Bateman will have plenty of one-on-one opportunities in this game. And I think it's on Lamar Jackson and it's on Rashad Bateman to get on the same page in this one. This is a perfect opportunity, in my opinion. Again, who's going to be on him? Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs? I don't know who it's going to be. But it's not like we're talking about Jair Alexander or Jalen Ramsey or, any of these top-flight NFL corners, that are always involved in these conversations. It's not. He's not facing Darrelle Revis out there. I think that he has an opportunity to do his thing. So a key to me is getting him involved. Get Rashad Bateman involved here. Make the Raiders worry about another guy. Make them worry about as many people as possible, pass-catching weapons-wise, and that can open up your run game. I mentioned the deep balls. I mentioned the play actions. I mentioned all of that. Offensive line is going to be huge. Push up front. Get into the second level. Getting outside. Pulling effectively. Getting your hands on guys. No penalties. One of my bold predictions, I don't think one illegal formation penalty gets called on the Ravens this week. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they're lined up deeper than they were last week. I think the Ravens get none. That's my prediction. You can put the pieces together on why, but I think the Ravens get no legal formation penalties this week. So we'll see. That's one of my bold predictions. And obviously, be a very welcome bold prediction if that ended up happening. On the defensive side of the ball, big game, Marcus Williams. Not that he had a bad game in week 1, made a really good play on Juju Smith-Schuster, but him continuing to impact the game. I expect the Ravens to be able to go lots of single high this game. Obviously, you put Kyle Hamilton up in the box, let him roam around, kind of like what we saw last time the Ravens faced off against Gardner Minshew and company, where Hamilton was roaming up around and going up to the line, getting those sacks. But Marcus Williams in that single high, that free roamer, I think he has a big game. Maybe an interception. Maybe 2. I don't know. We're getting a little bold there. But to me, I think Marcus Williams, big contributor. But Trenton Simpson to me, I think is going to continue to ball out. Obviously, Roquan and Kyle Hamilton both struggled in that week 1 game against Kansas City. To me, Trenton Simpson is a big X factor here. Obviously, his ability in coverage, right, I think is going to be really useful against guys like Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. But the matchup I'm watching is Brock Bowers versus Kyle Hamilton. That's going to be electric, especially if those guys get matched up throughout the game. That's something I am 100% going to be watching. That's to get your popcorn ready type of matchup there on the defensive side of the ball. I expect Nnamdi Madubuike to be able to make an impact in this one. You know, others as well at Afe Owe. That defensive front has to be able to produce. Michael Pierce wreaking havoc as well. Going to be interesting to see what the inactive situation looks like. The Ravens obviously ended up calling up from the practice squad John Kelly, the running back, and Kadar Holman in the corner. So obviously some reinforcements at those two positions. The fact that an outside linebacker did not get called up, I'd say would be somewhat positive news for Kyle Van Noy, but they do have enough depth to withstand if he doesn't play. And they probably just activate Brent Urban, go a little heavier there, play Malik Harrison on the outside, as I talked about, and go with that rotation of Harrison, Owe, Ajabo. Obviously, a guy like Tavius Robinson makes an impact. If you really want to get fancy with the spices, you can put Trenton Simpson in there as well, because he also can play that. So that's a really big one for me. But I do think the Ravens win this game. You know, I find it very hard to find pathways they lose. Obviously, they'd beat themselves if they lost this game, ideally. Like, the Raiders are a good football team. Don't overlook them. They're not the worst football team in the league. They're a team that has talent on both sides of the ball, but that quarterback position, you know, can Minshew do enough against this Ravens defense? That's the question. I'd be pretty shocked if the Ravens lost. Obviously, it's not out of the question that they do. Anything is possible. But I've been pretty consistent with my final score this week. I'm going to stick with it here. 31-17 is what I'll go with for Ravens-Raiders. Maybe it's a little closer than the final score indicates. You know, maybe the Raiders put up more of a fight. But, again, Ravens at home here. Raiders traveling across the country. It's obviously a 10 a.m. Pacific time start for them. So it's obviously a factor when you talk about that. We always talk about that when the Ravens go out to the West Coast and they're starting a little later. You know, they got that 4:05 game instead of the one game, and kind of timing-wise. But we talked about it with when they traveled abroad, too. Like, it can be tough, you know, going into a different time zone and having to adapt to that, especially early. I know for me, I'm not necessarily a morning person, so I'm not sure how effective I'll be traveling across the country like the Raiders are. But again, it goes far beyond just the time zone thing. Like, I think the Ravens are the more talented team. I think they want to make a statement. They want to obviously get their home season off to a start, good one, undefeated start at home. And plus, I think everybody understands, you know, 0-2, it's not necessarily your season's over, but it certainly puts you in a big hole. I've mentioned this stat on the show this week, but last year, only one team who started 0-2 made the playoffs, and that was the Houston Texans. So obviously, if they do start 0-2, the Ravens can still make the playoffs, but it's not like their schedule gets any easier. Like, honestly, those first 5 games, this is the game you most expect to win, because you got Dallas, Buffalo, Cincinnati coming up on the docket. It's tough. It's a tough stretch, and I think for a get-right game, if you want to call it that, a momentum starting game, if you want to call it that, whatever, you know, title you want to put on it, I think this is a very important game for the Ravens to have, just for their confidence and momentum and getting trends going and continuing to go in the right direction. That's all I have for you here today, though, on this Game Day Edition episode of Locked On Ravens. This was a fun one, a fun, good, inaugural Game Day Locked On Ravens episode. Again, we'll be doing these every single Sunday for game days. When there's a Monday night game, a Thursday night game, the Game Day episodes will just be the episode for that day, right? We're not going to do another Game Day episode. We'll only have the one. But for these Sundays, really exciting. Glad we're going to be able to do this. And coming up, we'll be back here later today. We'll be going through a post-game live instant reaction to everything that happened between the Ravens and Raiders in week 2. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you back here later today on Locked On Ravens.